bersama Kerajaan Negeri Johor, di samping juga sokongan oleh SUK Negeri Sembilan dan juga SUK Melaka.
Madani Rakyat Zon Selatan, kita telah berjaya menganjurkan pertandingan memancing terbuka kepada semua warga yang berminat.
Rakyat bersatu padu, kerajaan kian utuh, dan percayalah
Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, please do kindly join us in the main hall. We will be starting shortly. Thank you. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. A very good morning. Salam Malaysia Madani. And welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for joining us for day 2. Yang berbahagia Datuk Nur Razmi bin Dirun, Ketua Setiausaha Kementerian Ekonomi. Yang berbahagia Datuk Dr. Zunika binti Muhammad, Timbalan Ketua Setiausaha DASA. Yang berbahagia Datuk Dr. Yatimah binti Sajiman, Timbalan Ketua Setiausaha Sektor. Yang berbahagia Datuk Lokman Ahmad, Timbalan Ketua Setiausaha Makro. Yang berusaha Encik Khodir Baharum, Pengarah Bahagian Perkhidmatan Sosial. Representatives from all international organizations in attendance, heads of agencies and representatives from the various ministries and agencies, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back once again, and thank you for being a part of day 2 as we look forward to your feedback on how to prepare the best Rancangan Malaysia possible. We also would like to give you some input, some food for thought throughout the day. And next up, we have our theme on food security. Membentuk permintaan dan penawaran ke arah mempertingkat keterjaminan makanan. So the highlight on food security this morning will stretch across a keynote address, a panel discussion, a fireside chat, and we will be having a break after that. So we have 3 sessions to get into. I hope you're ready. Please do kindly utilize the QR codes that will be flashing from time to time to send your questions the way of our speakers, and they will then pick up on the questions most relevant to the conversation and help you address that. On that note, we shall begin with our first keynote, which will be focused around food security, striking the right balance between demand and supply to strengthen food security. Please help me welcome the Deputy Secretary General for Policy with the Ministry of Agriculture and Food Security, yang berbahagia, Dato' Azhar Hanim Ahmad.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Yang bahagia Datuk Nur Azmi bin Dirun, Secretary General, Ministry of Economy. Yang bahagia Datuk Dr. Zunika, Deputy Secretary General Policy. Yang bahagia Datuk Dr. Yatimah, Deputy Secretary General Sectoral. Yang bahagia Datuk Lokman Ahmad, Deputy Secretary General Makro. Yang berusaha Encik Khodir Baharum, Pengarah Bahagian Perkhidmatan Sosial. Excellency Ms. Karima El-Khori, UN Resident Coordinator for Malaysia, Singapore and Brunei Darussalam, United Nations, Malaysia. Ms. Judith Green, Representative to Malaysia, Country Manager, World Bank Group. Yang bahagia Tan Sri Ismail Bakar, my great mentor. Representatives from international organizations, ketua-ketua jabatan, wakil-wakil kementerian dan agensi, tuan-tuan dan puan-puan yang saya hormati sekalian. First and foremost, I would like to express my sincere appreciation to the organizers for inviting the Ministry of Agriculture and Food Security to deliver the keynote address for the 13th Malaysia Plan Kick-Off Conference. Today, I will address a critical issue that affects us all, food security in Malaysia. The challenges of the 21st century demand a focused approach on agri-food policies to secure our nation's food supply. The theme, Shaping Demand and Supply Towards Improving Food Security, is significant for fostering synergy among the public sector, private sector, farming communities, and food consumers. As for this, I will deliver a presentation on the topic of striking the right balance between supply and demand to strengthen food security. To effectively balance supply and demand, it is imperative in bolstering food security and ensuring a sustainable future for generations to come. Hopefully, the insights from this discourse will contribute to enhancing the resilience of the food security ecosystem in Malaysia. In this presentation, I will cover the following topics. Firstly, evolution of agricultural policies. Secondly, 6 key drivers influencing food system. Thirdly, current agro-food scenario. Fourth, initiatives to strengthen food security, and way forward. This slide shows the evolution of agriculture policies in Malaysia from 1974 to 2030. I won't go into specifics of each era, but it's important to note that Malaysia's performance in the food sector today is deeply shaped by the policies it has adopted over time. These policies can be divided into distinct phases agriculture-led development, an export-driven economy, shift towards an industrialized economy, and finally the pursuit of sustainability and a high-income economy. Each era reflects specific priorities and strategies that have driven the country's progress in agriculture and food security. The National Food Security Policy Action Plan 2021 to 2025, which was approved on 8 June 2021, is designed to enhance Malaysia's capability and preparedness in food security. The plan focused on several dimensions of food security, namely availability, accessibility, utilization, as well as stability and sustainability as outlined in the Food and Agriculture Organization. The recent National Agri-Food Policy 2021 to 2030, or known as DAN 2.0, emphasizes on continued modernization of the agri-food sector with a particular focus on ensuring food security for the nation. This involves strategies to enhance food production, distribution, and access while adapting to changing global and environmental conditions. The complexity of global food system is shaped by a range of interconnected factors that influence every aspect of how food is produced, distributed, consumed, and sustained. There are many drivers that impact the functionality of food systems and their ability to deliver healthy and sustainable diets, including demographic trends, political and institutional, biophysical and environmental, social and cultural influences, technology, innovation and infrastructure, as well as economic and market trends. Under demographic trends, with a population of 33.4 million in 2023, Malaysia is poised for continued demographic transformation. The population is projected to reach 36.9 million by 2030. In food security, the challenge lies in providing enough food for the growing population while ensuring the responsible use of natural resources. Malaysia's political and institutional drivers have historically emphasized industrial crops, impacting food security by fostering reliance on imports. Over time, policies have evolved to address this issue with recent frameworks focusing on improving food security and sustainability. The commitment to enhancing food security is evident in recent strategies aimed at reducing import dependence and strengthening the agri-food sector. Food systems rely on natural resources and ecosystem services to keep crops healthy and support human health. Sustainable management of water, land, and soil, along with preserving biodiversity, is essential to combat climate change. Climate change is likely to have the greatest impact on the agricultural output of low-resource regions, reducing soil fertility, crop yields, and animal productivity. Malaysia aims for net zero emissions by 2050. Currently, we contribute 0.8% of global greenhouse gases, of which 3% is attributed to the agriculture sector. Urbanization in Malaysia has shifted food consumption patterns, with more spending on food and beverages consumed away from home, recorded at 12.6% in 2016 as compared to 15.3% in 2022. There is a declining trend to those consumed at home, which were recorded at 17.7% in 2016 in comparison with 16.3% in 2022. The fast-paced urban lifestyle and the rise of digital food delivery services have driven this trend toward convenience. Innovation drives food systems by introducing technologies that improve food production, diets, and nutrition. Advancements from the Industrial Revolution, such as mechanization and new breeding methods, have transformed agriculture, and innovations including plant-based proteins and high-tech solutions such as nanotechnology and robotics enhance food production and sustainability. Malaysia's National Biotechnology Policy 2.0 and National Agri-Food Policy 2.0, amongst others, focus on using precision agriculture and biotechnology to boost food security and productivity while promoting sustainable practices and integrating new technologies. Economic trends show that rising incomes affect food systems by changing consumer behavior and farmers' investment abilities. As incomes grow, people often choose more nutritious, higher-priced foods. In Malaysia, the 2022 increases in median gross income, which is 2.5%, and medium disposable income of 1.9% indicate improved financial well-being, which could enhance living standards, including access to quality food. Globalization and trade also play a role in expanding food choices and availability. In 2023, the agro-food sector made a substantial contribution to our country's GDP, amounting to 182.2 billion ringgit, or 11.6% of the total GDP. This significant growth expanded the composition of our GDP, incorporating the food and beverage industries within the manufacturing and services sectors. It is worth noting that the agriculture subsector alone contributed 54.6 billion ringgit, while manufacturing contributed 40.2 billion ringgit and services 87.5 billion ringgit. This diversity underscores a thriving landscape, with each component contributing uniquely to the agro-food sector's overall success. The food industry is recognized to be among the major contributors to the national economy, with high and continuous demand. The total trade in Malaysian food products grew by 4.1%, or 5 billion ringgit, to RM 125 billion in 2023. Mainly contributed by imports valued at 78.7 billion compared to exports of 46.4 billion ringgit. However, the deficit balance of trade for agro-food has increased from 31 billion ringgit in 2022 to 32.2 billion in 2023. This suggests that the country is spending more on importing agro-food products compared to what it earns from exporting them, reflecting a growing imbalance in agro-food trade. In Malaysia, self-sufficiency ratio, or SSR, explains the extent to which a country's supply of agricultural commodities to meet domestic demands. Per capita consumption refers to the amount of food consumed by each person per year. The Minister monitors 8 selected commodities for SSR and PCC. For instance, in 2022, the SSR for eggs was notably high at 108.9%, indicating that local production exceeded domestic consumption. This high SSR demonstrates nation's strong self-reliance in egg production compared to other commodities where dependency on imports is greater. I would like to take this opportunity to also explain our new concept, which is called National Agro-Food Security Innovation Program, or in Malay, PINTA, Program Inovasi Nasional Keterjaminan Agro Makanan Rakyat, announced by Yang Berhormat Minister early this year. The PINTA concept focuses on innovation and improvement throughout the agro-food value chain. As a key game changer, PINTA aims to revitalize the sector with 5 main strategies, namely capacity development, institutional reform, R&D, technology, and expansion of collaborative networks. Upon realizing the need to strengthen the agro-food sector to meet the increasing demand, the Ministry has introduced 5 new directions to drive the agro-food sector within the period of 2023 until 2030. These efforts encompass: first, strengthening the aquaculture industry; second, expanding feedlot cattle breeding; third, implementing grain corn cultivation; fourth, increasing youth involvement; and fifth, empowering the agriculture training institutes. From the 5 initiatives, let me focus on the Ministry's initiative with regards to strengthening the aquaculture industry. Aquaculture is a high-value industry contributing to fish sufficiency as well as the export market. The Ministry aims to increase fish yield from aquaculture activities to 60% to reduce pressure on the demand for captured fisheries while increasing producers' income. In 2023, the Aquaculture Empowerment Program quickly boosted production by involving 1,496 entrepreneurs. They receive input assistance, fundings for equipment, and technical support. This program helped reach a target of 490,000 metric tons worth 3.9 billion ringgit and increased producers' incomes from 2,740 ringgit to 3,370 ringgit. Recognizing the critical need to enhance food security alongside the 5 previously mentioned initiatives, the Ministry outlines 4 key industry focuses for 2024. They are paddy and rice, poultry and eggs, onion and pineapple industry. Since rice is our staple food, allow me to elaborate on the paddy and rice industry. The Large-Scale Paddy Field Program, or SMART SBB, launched by KPKM in 2021, aims to boost paddy productivity through large-scale farming. This public-private partnership involves the government, private sector, and farmers using contract farming to consolidate land for better efficiency. SMART SBB will reduce the fiscal commitments on subsidies and incentives, while at the same time introduce the latest technology from the private sector. In 2023, SMART SBB program adopted a new model known as SMART SBB ala Sekinchan with high-yielding farming practices. The model was launched on 9 May 2023 and has been implemented in selected areas in Perlis, Kedah, Kelantan, and Terengganu. This successful model will be expanded to other granary areas in 2024 and beyond. The Gelombang Padi initiative has been implemented this year to elevate the country's paddy and rice industry to a more efficient and resilient level. Through the initiatives, the Ministry implements 12 programs that would be an impetus to transform the country's paddy and rice industry. One of the important KPIs set under the Gelombang Padi initiative is to double rice productivity from 4 metric tons to at least 8 metric tons per hectare through the SMART SBB ala Sekinchan program. This will help to increase local rice production and reduce reliance on imports. Considering Malaysia's current challenges and the aspirations of Malaysia Madani, KPKM will focus on these key areas to strengthen food security and balance supply with demand. First, strengthening data with Agriculture Census 2024. Malaysia's agenda of strengthening the national statistical system is to establish a centralized data system through the development of data hubs. Thus, an integrated agricultural statistical database as a centralized repository of diverse data sources is needed. Agriculture Census 2024 is crucial for national planning and development purposes. It forms the basis for projections and estimates of the country's agriculture sector, subsequently as a new benchmark in establishing agriculture sector indicators for food supply and socio-economic security. Second, Nation Food Security Indicator. Developing a Malaysian food security indicator is vital for assessing food security strategies. This indicator will look at food availability, accessibility, utilization, and stability. The Ministry will be able to track food production, imports, nutritional quality, and household food spending. By regularly updating these indicators, policymakers can make informed decisions to address food shortages or other issues related to food security throughout the country. Third, addressing food loss and waste. Food loss and food waste is a significant global challenge that contributes to food insecurity, environmental degradation, and economic inefficiency. Reducing food loss and waste throughout the food supply chain is imperative for achieving sustainable food systems. To effectively combat food loss and waste, it is essential to implement comprehensive strategies across the food supply chain. Sustainable farming techniques can significantly reduce post-harvest losses by optimizing agricultural practices. Additionally, investing in improved infrastructure and technologies such as cold storage facilities and efficient transportation systems can help to preserve food quality and prevent waste during storage and distribution. To strengthen Malaysia's food security, it's also important to address climate change, the labor market, and youth involvement. Climate change can disrupt farming, so adopting climate-smart practices and technologies is essential. Improving working conditions and attracting skilled labor to agriculture will boost productivity. Involving young people through education and technology can drive innovation and sustainability in the food system, ensuring a robust and future-ready agriculture sector. These steps will help create a more resilient and adaptable food system for Malaysia. In conclusion, striking a balance between food supply and demand is a complex challenge that requires a multifaceted approach. I am confident that through initiatives mentioned earlier and with the support from relevant parties, the agri-food sector will remain competitive and therefore contributing to the national economic development, improving the well-being of the people as well as ensuring environmental sustainability. Before I end my session, I am delighted and honored to invite all of you to the Malaysian Agriculture, Horticulture and Agritourism Show, MAHA 2024, which will be held from 11 to 22nd September 2024 at Maib Serdang. This event will be a chance to gain first-hand experience about agriculture technology, innovative applications, and agribusiness development opportunities across the food supply chain. Thank you very much. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam, and thank you, Dato' Azah, for the keynote. Certainly taking cue from lessons we've learned throughout the pandemic on food security and putting Malaysia on track towards a very secure position in terms of our own food supply chain. So ladies and gentlemen, that brings us to our first panel, also on the tail of food security, and to write upon some of the themes that have been brought up in the keynote. Our first panel will be discussing shaping demand and supply towards improving food security. So we have an expert panel joining us, one of whom is the mentor to Dato' Azah, as she mentioned. Tan Sri Dato' Sri Dr. Ismail Bakar, the chairman of Johor Plantations Group Berhad, will be sitting on the panel. And he will be joined by Dato' Adnan Pawante, chairman of the Federation of Malaysian Manufacturers. We also have Dr. Pavo Eliste, Agriculture Regional East Asia and Pacific Manager for the World Bank. So we have quite the power-packed panel looking from Malaysian shores and towards global best practices. And as we set things up on stage, once again, I'm reminded that we do have a QR code that will be popping up on the screens from time to time. Please do access the QR code to send us your questions via Slido. And if the moderator feels the need, he will then open things up to the floor, perhaps for live questions. But that's at the discretion of the moderator, who is Professor Dr. Insinyur B.T. Hang Tuah Baharudin, Deputy Vice Chancellor, Industry and Community Relations, University Putra, Malaysia. So I'd like to invite Professor Dr. Insinyur B.T. Hang Tuah Baharudin to kindly join us on stage and to take charge of the conversation, as well as introduce members of his panel.
Okay, good morning. Assalamualaikum and very good morning. Thank you all. Thank you to the Ministry of Economy for having us, all these three smart gentlemen here. Before I begin, I think I'll quickly go through a bit of background of the three panelists that we have this morning. By the way, my name is Hang Tuah. I'm from UPM, and I'm truly honored to be here sitting with Tan Sri Datuk Sri Dr. Ismail Bakar, who has an illustrious career within the government and finally retired as the Chief Secretary of the government in 2020. Currently, Tan Sri is the chairman of the Johor Plantation Group, the KPJ Healthcare Berhad, Bank Islam Malaysia Berhad, and the deputy chairman of JCOP. Is it true, Tan Sri? Yeah? He has been the Pro-Chancellor of University Pendidikan Sultan Idris since September 2023, and currently he's been appointed as the chairman of the Enforcement Agency of Integrity Commission. Next to him on the right is Dato' Adnan Pawante. Dato' Adnan Pawante is currently the Executive Director, Group Corporate Affairs of Nestle Malaysia Berhad. Beside corporate affairs, he oversees the sustainability, corporate nutrition, consumer service, and halal affairs of the company. He has had the experience working abroad in various Nestle markets, namely in Australia, Turkey, and the Philippines. And he's a passionate in the area of manufacturing and sustainability, so we'll probably hear more about that later on. And he holds an MBA and bachelor degree in engineering. He is currently the Federation of Malaysian Manufacturer for the Malaysian Food Manufacturing Group Chairman. And last but not least, on my right is Dr. Pavo Eleste from the World Bank. Currently, he's the Practice Manager, Agriculture and Food Global Practice, East Asia and Asia Pacific region of the World Bank. There's a long list of accolades of all the three gentlemen, but I was told by the moderator to be quick, because we want to hear good input from all three gentlemen here. So Dr. Pavo has accumulated nearly 27 years of the international development experience, working in 3 regions, primarily in East Asia, in the Pacific region, as well as in the African region. He holds a PhD in Natural Resources Economics, master's degree in the Agricultural Economics from West Virginia University. So these are the 3, I believe, the 3 key personnel that we have today that will be sharing some of the view on how do we discuss and elaborate the topic of today, which is the shaping demand and supply towards improving food security. Just to get the setting right, let me just share that one of the concerns raised yesterday during the presentation by the Ministry of Economy for the framework for the Malaysia Plan 13 plan is the planetary health. Yeah? When we are focusing on increasing our output, given the fact that we have limited natural resources, the pressure to increase 60% of food production, and there's also 55% increase in water demand, not only for individual consumption, but also for industry. Given the fact that we are also grappled with the fast rising population, climate change-induced disruption, and also other vulnerabilities such as supply chain disruption. So these are all concerned by not only Malaysia, but also around the world. So how do we guarantee the food security, food supply security to our nation, especially a small open country like Malaysia? So that's a concern that we have. The panelists lined up today will touch on their respective expert areas, their initiative as a beacon of hope. So we really hope that the industry players can assist us on this. I believe they will illustrate how innovation, how technology, modernization, and ecological practices can convert our agriculture sector into a hotspot of food production resilience. Okay. Just a quick background that we have about 30% of our household spending are actually focused on food and beverage. Okay, so that's 30% that contribute to our CPI value, and then our food consumption away is actually about 7% compared to 6.6% 2 years ago. Okay, I think let us begin this discussion this morning with probably Dr. Pavo Eleste will be sharing us the view from World Bank, and then how it will then shape the policy within Malaysia, hopefully. Thank you.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. It is my pleasure to be able to represent the bank here in today's conference and to be able to speak to you and contribute to the topic of food security. I really liked the presentation made by Deputy Secretary General, which created a nice framework for thinking about food systems transformation and food security vision for Malaysia. And what I would like to start off today is to build on what Deputy Secretary General said and to put it into the global context, and then work our way back towards the Malaysia-specific issues. So food systems have been adopting over the centuries, so there is nothing new about this. So far, the change has been gradual. The challenge facing the food systems in the future is that the speed of change, what the food systems are going to have to go through, is going to be much faster. And that's because of the main drivers which are driving the change of the food systems, such as urbanization, with demographic changes, and the changes in consumption of food are becoming much faster. So the question is really, how are we going to feed 10 billion people in the planet by 2050? The global agriculture productivity will have to increase by about annual rate of 1.8% for us to be able to feed 10 billion people by 2050. Compare this to about 1.5% of annual productivity growth, what we see now. And what is most alarming is that this productivity growth has been declining in recent years. So this will have effect on the food requirements, as we need to produce at least 56% more food by 2050 to be able to feed 10 billion people. So there are three global challenges what we are facing. And the way we like to think about that in the bank is like along three dimensions, so which is the healthy economy, healthy people, and healthy planet. So talking about healthy economy, the key issue really is the farm income challenge. As we all know, smallholder farmers are the poorest segments of the population in several East Asian countries, including Malaysia. And we need to have significantly higher income growth for these farmers to be able to lift them out of the poverty. In fact, this is not going to be easy, because for us to be able to double the farm incomes, the annual productivity growth of these farmers will have to be in excess of 4%. Secondly, agriculture has not delivered on improved nutrition outcomes. Sure, we still have a problem of malnutrition in many countries, but the trend, what we are seeing, and particularly here in East Asia, is that that we are not eating the right type of food. There are about 2 billion people in the world who are obese, and this trend is here to stay unless we change the way we do the things in food systems. And third challenge is related to increasing environmental footprint, something what Deputy Secretary General pointed out a number of times in her speech. We have a major issue in terms of water pollution driven by agriculture. We have issues related to fertilizer overuse, growing livestock sector pressures, and this all has led to the situation where we have collectively pushed the planetary boundaries to exceed in 3 dimensions: nitrogen, phosphorus, and biodiversity loss. And while agriculture is itself victim of climate change, it is also the major contributor to the climate change, with about a quarter of global greenhouse gas emissions coming from the sector. So challenges facing Malaysia. Challenges facing Malaysia's agri-food systems are actually quite similar to what I just talked about global ones. As elsewhere, the transformation of the food systems is driven by urbanization, which is currently at 75%, but is expected to reach 80% by 2030. With urbanization comes a change in dietary preferences, as well as broader demographic changes, such as aging of the population, which is something what Malaysia is already facing. Now, with the dietary changes, there is obviously trend towards more nutritious foods, but this also comes with a higher cost, and there is still significant share of population in Malaysia who are not able to afford such diets. And this brings us to the income question. Like other upper middle income countries, we see increasing income gap between farm incomes and non-farm incomes. And a lot of that, what we see here in Malaysia, is related to structural issues. Aging farm population, the land fragmentation, and partly also the past agricultural policies which have incentivized farmers to produce low-value staple crops instead of high-value, high nutritious food. And like many other countries in the region, Malaysia agriculture is affected by the climate change, putting downward pressure on the productivity growth. So, as I mentioned before, the food demand and supply, both in Malaysia as well as globally, will be changed by the changing diets. And the diets are being driven by the urbanization and related demographic change. So what we are going to see is that as a result of rapid urbanization, the aggregate demand for the food will increase. And the type of food what is being demanded will change towards more higher nutritious food products such as meats, dairy, fruits, and vegetables. All of this is going to put much more pressure on already strained food systems. For agri-food systems to be able to respond to these challenges, they need modernization. And this modernization will need to start at the national food security goals and policies. So the slide, what you see now, gives you some sense what do we mean by the modernization of food security policies to address these challenges. First, rather than continuing to focus on meeting quantitative goals, such as grain self-sufficiency, an effective modern agri-food system would demand much greater emphasis on qualitative improvements. This means that the food security goals would need to address issues such as nutrition, food safety, food quality, farm incomes, as well as environmental sustainability. And so the question is, so where does the money come for this all? How do we finance this transformation of food systems? And I like to argue that money is already there. Countries like China, Indonesia, and Philippines, they spend in average about 37% of their agriculture budgets on direct subsidies. For Malaysia, this figure is even higher. About 45% of Malaysia's agriculture budget goes to subsidies. Some of this money could be repurposed for more productive investments, such as adoption of productivity-enhancing technologies, including digital agriculture technologies, modern practices such as climate-smart agriculture. Now, there are good examples already in East Asia happening on this. China, for instance, is already repurposing some of its public expenditures for traditional agriculture programs towards green agriculture programs. So let me close up with my last slide, which presents some of the high-level solutions for the challenges I discussed today, and which are also relevant to Malaysia. They draw on the long-time advisory work what we have been doing with the government of Malaysia here starting with the analysis of efficiency and effectiveness of public expenditures in agriculture, then looking at the rice sector policy transformation opportunities, and now we just finished the work on looking at the digital agriculture transformation. And on the last point on the digital agriculture, it is particularly interesting because Malaysia actually has rather advanced application of digital technologies, including agriculture. The challenge really is not that there is not enough digital agriculture technology application. The challenge is how to close the digital divide gap between the commercial farming sector and between subsistence farming, and that brings us to issues of skills, issues of institutions. And then on my last point, which is about how to support the climate resilient, low-emission agriculture, I would like to argue here that low-emission agriculture is not luxury, it is actually profitable agriculture. The examples from Vietnam show that by adopting low-emission agriculture practices at scale, the farmers have been able to reduce their input cost by 22%, they have increased the yields by 18%, and the farm incomes by 28% by also reducing the greenhouse gas emissions by 30%. The similar data is actually also coming from Malaysia, which is very consistent to what we have seen in Vietnam. So I would like to close by arguing that this all could be a new opportunity for Malaysian agriculture, for Malaysian farmers, including the poorest segment of the farming community. And the decarbonization itself is something which is not going to go away, but let's turn it into the opportunity. And we, in the World Bank, we are ready to work with the government of Malaysia to turn all of these challenges I talked today into the opportunities. Thank you so much.
Thank you, thank you. Round of applause to Dr. Pavo, please. Thank you. Right, I'll reserve the Q&A after all three panelists presented their case. Maybe I will call upon Tan Sri to give your insightful to what's happening in JPG maybe, and then what you can assist the country moving forward. Thank you. Please. Thank you.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. First of all, thank you, Prof, and also to organizer for inviting me to this important kick-off conference in preparation for RMK 13. And I would like to share the organization that I'm representing, which is Johor Plantation Group, or JPG. JPG is a public listed company, which is, just listed a few months back in July in market Bursa Malaysia, and market capitalization right now is about 2.5 billion ringgit. And JPG, or Johor Plantation, is a subsidiary of Kulim Malaysia Berhad, and the agribusiness vertical under Johor Corporation, or JCOP in short. There's two main business for Kulim, which is one plantation, which is under Johor plantation group. And number one is very close to agri-food or agro-food. No? I'm still confused which is agri-food or agro-food. But in Malaysia, we're always referring to agri-food. And World Bank always referring to agri-food. And agri-food managed by Kulim Malaysia Berhad. JPG managed the entire palm oil business for the group. Currently, we produce crude palm oil and palm kernel, and we are one of the first company to produce biomethane gas from our waste, which is in line with our sustainable goal. We have 5 palm oil mills in Malaysia, and we are operating on 60,000 hectares, of which only 50,900 hectares already planted with oil palm. And 100% of our fully owned palm oil are RSPO certified. And our current production, about 1.3 million metric ton, and a fresh fruit branch or FFB with yield of 2.3 million ton per hectare. Some people asking what are the relation palm oil with food security? My answer is very simple. You can have fish, nice fish, good fish. You can have fresh mutton, meat, but if you don't have the cooking oil, the palm oil, and surely you cannot boil, and there's no taste anymore. So there's a relation why Kementerian Ekonomi inviting me to present here. So there is some boundary issue here, where plantation is always considered as under Ministry of Commodity, and agri-food or agro-food under Ministry of Agriculture and Food Security. As the name transformed from MOA to MAFI and now to MAFS, so I hope we can see that the result is there, not only on the policy, but on important thing is whether we can meet our food supply in our country in future. This is some brief about Johor plantation and in relation with food security. Our aim is, our commitment is to produce sustainable product in bigger supply chains of food security. And as I said, as I mentioned just now, is 100% of our RSPO, our plantation are RSPO certified. And at the same time, our commitment is to make sure that our partners, especially our smallholders around our plantation, are also RSPO certified, or at least MRSPO certified. Because why? Because we also receive supply from our smallholders. This is how we create supply chains in our production. We produce high value quality product that meet market demand. This is our commitment, and now we are focusing on the downstream product with biggest supplier or biggest manufacturer in the world. So we do hope that one day we are not only producing palm oil, but we also producing high quality, high premium product for the food security. Looking at the DAN 2.0 or Dasar Agro Makanan Negara, National Food Policy 2.0, as presented by Dato' Azah just now. As a person who coming from Ministry of Agriculture those days, MOA, I would say that this is the best policy, the most comprehensive policy that we have. As far as I based on my experience in Ministry of Agriculture. Dr. Zulika, so is here, so I think she can confirm me. And it's always comprehensive. I don't see any loophole anywhere that we forget to put in this comprehensive policy. Having said that, I couldn't find how to execute this policy. So we can have good policy. If we don't have right execution tools, I think we will not be producing good results. So I think the most important thing, how to execute this policy step by step to make sure that people, our farmers understand that we are having good policy and we need to execute properly. This is something that we need to focus on in RMK 13 next year. So I do hope that this execution policy should be put in place as number one. We can improve this policy, the current DAN 2.0, but most important thing is to how we can execute and what tools that we need to put in place to make sure that the good policy will result with higher productivity. This is something that we need to look into that. And number two is on how we treat this policy. I think having this policy alone is not enough if we don't have a good treatment to this policy. So I would rather consider to put agriculture or agri-food policy as a strategic policy for the country. So make it to mainstream that agri-food as same status with the defense policy. Sama taraf dengan dasar pertahanan negara. Why we should put agriculture policy or agri policy as a strategic industry? Because this is the only way that we can provide enough food supply to our people in time of conflict, in time of serious climate change, as mentioned by Prof. Pebo just now, that climate change is imminent and we cannot run away from the climate change. If we can give treatment to ESG, as we know everybody now, every company is required to have ESG compliance, ESG compliance. Why don't we have the same treatment for food security or agri-food business to all government ministry, to all government agencies, and also the private sector, so that this policy can become one of their main agenda for the country as we consider food security as a strategic industry. For example, GLCs like Telecom, TNB, and even GPG, we can contribute to the food security, and they can contribute also to the food security. They can develop good technology, help our farmers. I think in terms of technology penetration among the farmers is very low, very, very low. So I think we need to double it up to make sure that what we are talking here in this room reach them, not only, but it's reality. Yeah? So this is important thing. So we hope that GLC can invest in the technology and make it accessible to all the farmers. So what my message here is that for the RMK 13, So we can make it mandatory, or we can give treatment to food security as a national strategic industry and make it compulsory for all ministry, GLCs and private sector. Of course, when we're talking about private sector, number one is what is the incentive for me if I invest in agriculture. I mean, giving them incentive is much, much better if we can reduce the bill imports, and at the same time we can improve our balance of payment. As we know, our import for food is about 70 billion or 75 billion, and our export only 4 billion, and we have, deficit about 30 or 40 billion. So I think if we can improve our food production, and for sure our balance of payments getting better, and of course our exchange rate also, hopefully we can improve or strengthen much, much better. So I don't see that giving them incentive is, if we put in targeted manner, in right place, I think the benefit to the country is more than what we give in terms of the incentive that we given to them. I don't know what my focus is now. But the next is one, I want to give emphasis on the R&D. The R&D is very important in agriculture. Why we always talking about our neighbor is better than us? Even our neighbor, the smallest countries in our region, but they have higher productivity. Compared to us, we have a good land, we have dedicated arable land, but we still cannot produce high, productivity for foods. For example, like our TKPM, Taman Kekal Pengeluaran Makanan, is not producing high quality or high productivity. I think this is something is missing here between state government and federal government. We should have good collaboration, understanding, and we have to consider this as one of our main priority. Even though we have right forum for federal and state to sit down, where the ESCO and the Minister of Agriculture sit down every year to make sure that this agenda put on place and to solve if any problem in the implementation of the TKPM, but still did not happen. It's sad to say that having a good, huge size of land, we have 72 TKPM all over the country, from Perlis to Sabah and Sarawak, and yet we can produce good product for the country. If we can focus for this 72 TKPM plus the grazing farm or area, I think we can increase our productivity, and at the same time also we can produce our ruminants supply in the country. So I think these two things that we need to consider under RMK 13. And in relation to R&D, our R&D is not really looking into the whole supply chain. For example, when we having crisis in Ukraine, we short of our fertilizer, or the cost getting higher. And of course, many people argue that importing is cheaper than producing. This is always issues that we need to consider, whether when we talk about strategics, does it cost matter, or I mean, the benefit more important. I mean, if we're talking about survival of the country, so this is something that we need to consider whether our R&D can fulfill for the supply chain disruption in terms of input, agriculture input availability. Yeah?
Sorry, sorry, I have to cut you there.
Oh, okay.
Because maybe
I'm
a
sorry.
word or two before then we go.
There's
one more.
1 minute.
Please, carry on.
So I hope that we can focus on the R&D as our priority in our food security program. So I hope that the policymakers can give the consideration for the R&D, and we don't want to see R&D that we have now, but on applied R&D for the whole supply chains of food security. Terima kasih. Wabillahi taufiq wal hidayah. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi taala.
Thank you, Tan Sri. A round of applause to Tan Sri, please. Thank you. Interesting, several policies to be suggested, but we'll have the discussion later on. And our final panelist for today, before we continue with the Q&A, is Dato' Adnan. Please, thank you, Dato'.
Assalamualaikum, salam sejahtera, good morning. So the advantage of being the last speaker is that the framing and also the context of the whole conversation today has been done. So let me start off by introducing a little bit, because I'm today representing the Federation of Malaysian Manufacturers, or FMM, and this is the organization of all manufacturers in Malaysia, and I chair the part of the organization which is the food group, the food manufacturers. At the same time, I also work for Nestle, which is my company that I work for. So I will start off with the little bit of the focus. How do I move this now? Okay, here. So let's look a little bit at the consumer. Now, if you look at the Malaysian consumers, based on this data here, you can see that the consumers are very focused, are very much aware on physical health and also mental health. And there's a great desire, 86% of Malaysians, that they want to take control of their health and they want to be much healthier. Also, at the same time, if you look at the demographic change in Malaysia, you can see that the population is aging. You can see also that by 2040, almost half of the Malaysian population will be above 40. So I will no longer be the odd one out, will be part of the average. So at the same time, due to better food, better care, health care, and also better lifestyle, the life expectancy of Malaysians are increasing. This is good, and this now means that the demographic will even be shifting much faster towards where I mentioned earlier. Now, this is good, all this awareness and all this interest, but what is the ground reality here? Okay, here's the ground reality. Here's some data from Ministry of Health here. The ground reality tend to point to something a little bit more different. You can see there is an increase in the issue of coronary health diseases. Overweight. Malaysia, unfortunately, holds the dubious distinction of being one of the countries with the highest overweight and obesity. So that's not a very nice recognition for us. And also, we have issues also in regard to mental health. Now, all these trends and awareness here points to a need for the industry to also respond and for the country to provide the needs of this situation here. Okay, so all right. Now let's look a little bit, besides nutrition, let's also look a little bit on sustainability. Sustainability is a little bit of a newcomer here, though it's not so new in Western countries, America and Europe. Now, on the left there, you can see some statistics, which is a global statistics, to show that people are taking notice of the environment, even though it's not yet overwhelming. You could see that from the statistics there, or from the survey there, 40% of the global trend are still showing eco-indifference. People still don't really register the need to be concerned and to take the necessary action with regards to environment. But there is a growing number which are showing they are actively buying, actively supporting the sustainability products. These are not necessarily the so-called tree huggers. The general consumers are getting more aware and getting more civic consciousness on this direction. And there are people who are basically fence-sitters that with time to come, they will move on the other side. Though in Asia, Southeast Asia, Malaysia in particular, the awareness on sustainability is not so strong yet, but it is a growing interest there. And this itself will then cause a change in the trend for demand, change for products for consumers. Now, what is the response from the industry? So I gathered some examples. If you indulge me, for convenience sake, I use a lot of examples from Nestle, but I do get also from the other members in the industry. On nutrition, there is a growing trend to have less salt, less sodium, less sugar, and also less fatty food. And the Ministry of Health, for instance, have responded very well with their national plan for nutrition. At the same time, also providing direction for a category of product called Healthier Choice. I hope you're familiar with this product, and I hope you're all looking for this. So this is the indicator that you can see on the front of pack of a product, where they have the sign of the tick there, indicating Healthier Choice. So if you take this product, you know that these products will fulfill the requirement for less sugar, salt, and fat. So this is one of the way to respond. The other one to respond is on nutrition. And here companies have also responded by having products which are more nutritious with fortifications, and you have products which are having higher fiber, less high nutrition of vitamins, and so on and so forth. And you can see here some examples of products. So you have specific focus on reducing certain ingredients like sugar and salt, and also a certain focus on increasing and fortification of the product. So these are reactions to that industry are providing in order to support the conditions or the desire of the consumer. Now, I want to touch a little bit on food security and on sourcing. It is great that the companies are providing this kind of facilities, this kind of opportunities for the consumer, but where are they buying the products? Many a times, the products that are sold in Malaysia tends to come from abroad, even if it's manufactured here, but you can get ingredients coming from Brazil and another ingredient coming from China, and they put it together and they make it a fantastic offer to the consumer. But with the learning we had during COVID, where the concept of single point of failure, which means that in the supply chain, if you have one point of failure, if you have a port congestion, for instance, or you have a major accident on the road which disrupts the highway for 2 or 3 days, it can disrupt the whole supply chain. And this is a very important concept, and with this, it makes a lot of companies, industry to realize what can we do to strengthen, to make our supply chain more robust. Yes, we can consider business contingency plan, have a second source or third source, but what is more important is, can we try to shorten the supply chain? Can we source our ingredient? Can we source our material locally? Yeah? As I said, my apologies, and I hope you indulge me with some examples here. I took the examples from Nestle because it's convenient. Nestle, for instance, for years have always been collaborating with farmers up north in Kelantan to source chili, fresh chili, to make our chili sauce. And here is a very much win-win solution. We source it, we support the farmers, we give them the seedlings, and we give them a steady price. They in return provide good quality chilies, and from here we have a very nice ecosystem that's been going on for more than 30 years. Paddy Club, we make baby food, Cerelac, and we source the paddy or the rice locally from Kedah. And this is not just buying it from the open market. We have to work with them to cultivate them, because we need specific requirements on the rice. For those of you who are familiar with rice, you know that if you buy rice in the open market, it has quite a high content of arsenic, right? So those things needs to be addressed if you want to make it for baby food. Nescafe, a well-known brand coffee. Malaysia at one time had a little bit of a coffee. We had coffee from Selangor here, but over the years, with the strong emergence of palm oil and so forth, this kind of secondary crops tends to be put on the late side. So we try to revive the industry in Kedah, for instance, in Kedah, and work with the farmers there to try to cultivate. And once again, as a company, we provide a steady demand. If they can produce, we're willing to take more and more what they can produce. And we provide technology. We even bring in, for instance, the mother plant from Brazil and we have a nursery that we give out the seedlings on a yearly basis to the farmers. Our latest initiative is on sourcing cocoa. Cocoa was a very important crop many years ago in Malaysia, 30, 40 years. We were a major player. But over the years, it has gone down to almost nothing. And we are trying to revive this with the Ministry of Plantation in Sabah and Sarawak to try and source. And once again, we provide the demand, the technology, the support, and how we can do it. Now, the other thing is, what is important, the food industry is quite fragmented. There's a lot of players, a lot of unregulated players too. And therefore, collaboration with different partners is very important. I like very much this. I'm not saying this because the audience are from Ministry of Economy, but I like very much this collaboration we have with the program IPR-INTAN. Here we are working with also expanding our sourcing of chili. Do you know that there's plenty of chili in Malaysia, but we cannot source them during the monsoon? 4 months in a year, the crop tends to fail because of the weather. And so we have to go out and buy chili from Vietnam and from Thailand. We are working with a local upstart company called GoBees. I think the lady is here today. And we are bringing in the technology called vertical farming, which is basically indoor farming. And we hope that with this, we can be able to provide the supply, continue to supply during the monsoon. It's a very interesting technology. It's an environmental control. You don't need to use pesticide, fertilizer. It's using the drip technology. And also it's using a lot of IoT, a lot of technology, which we hope to attract young people and get young people who are attuned to doing farming but don't like the hard life of farmer to try and do this kind of modern farming technology. It's wonderful. And one of the things they told me is that like if you do farming on the open land, you will then do the fertilizers, the nutrient. But in this case, because of the sensors on the ground, you will know when the plant wants. So you only feed the plant when the plant wants and not otherwise. Interesting stuff, I tell you. So these are some of the work that we do. I go to the next slide. Okay. I also want to share finally, we talk about providing solutions for nutrition, giving opportunity for people to subscribe to green products, more sustainability. By the end of the line, still the dollars and cents are important. I think Dr. Pavo mentioned just now that 30 or 40% of the household income, typically of a Malaysian, is spent on food. And this is clear that if any solutions we want to give, we have to give the solution which is affordable to the Malaysians. So we have to provide solutions which are, we have to provide affordable nutrition and affordable sustainably sourced products. This is very important, and therefore we talk about, Tan Sri talk about scale, talk about technology. These are all stuff that I hope will be included, that I know, I saw it earlier, will be included in the RMK 13. And this is so important. We are small, but we can, if we put our head together, be also a giant in food supply, and that is in food security. Lastly, I want to touch on a subject which is close to my heart, is on sustainability. Okay. I think both speakers touched a little bit on low carbon emission ingredients. This is an opportunity that the world is embarking on. We need to also include in our program a technique called regenerative farming, which will help our farmers to be climate friendly, but also be able to produce products which are low in carbon. And at the moment now, anything to do with sustainability, with low carbon, there is a premium. If I were to buy cocoa or coffee, I would buy it at world price. But if I buy low carbon coffee, it comes with a premium. The premium at the moment, and just to give you a bit of a flavor how lucrative it is, per ton of carbon you get from coffee, for instance, is worth 40 Swiss francs. It is extremely lucrative. It is very interesting. I've been talking to Ministry of Plantation about regenerative farming and about intercropping. Do you know that there are projects that's happening in Brazil and Central America, and that they have started a commercial plantation to intercrop cocoa with palm oil? And if you intercrop cocoa with palm oil, I know cocoa, for those who are familiar, cocoa is a bit of a cerewet punya plant, is with attention, but the opportunity is there. If you intercrop cocoa with palm oil, you can, of course, increase the total output of your land, because you're planting cocoa and palm oil. But at the same time, it has been proven that the crop will also have less carbon. You can reduce the carbon emission as much as 20%. And with that, you not only be able to sell your product at the commodity price, you'll be able also to demand a premium for low carbon. Last thought, we have 6 million hectares of land or so, of which majority is plantation. And urbanization is creeping into the farmland. We know that we try to avoid having to cut more forests to do deforestation. Therefore, in order for us to support the increased amount of population, we need to maximize the use. Palm oil, for instance, when you plant palm oil, you plant 9 meters or 10 meters apart. In between is just shrub and rubbish. If you do intercropping, you'll be able to increase and diversify our food production while still maintaining our forest reserve. That, I think, is where I'm going to stop here. It's a fantastic subject. I hope we in RMK 13 go deeper and take the opportunity with regards to sustainability and low carbon sourcing. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Okay, thank you, Dr. Adnan. I've been reminded many times now by the organizers to be quick because of the time. Just a quick question to maybe Tan Sri first, and then after that maybe a wrap up by Dr. Pavo. Tan Sri, because you talk about policy just now, maybe you can share with the audience today what would be the industry wish list in terms of in agricultural sectors mainly to drive the sustainable growth within the industry for the food security. Please, Tan Sri.
Thank you. Okay, thank you, Prof. To understand productivity, I would like to share the conventional way of understanding the input and output. I believe the Cobb-Douglas production function is still applied here, where to increase or where the productivity or output is the function of AKL, which is technology, capital, and labor. So, in this case, if you're asking me what are my wish list is confined to technology, capital, and labor. How best can we explore this technology, capital, and labor for the sake of increasing our productivity to meet the food demand for the country? So, in this regard, we need to have, as I mentioned just now, the entire R&D for the food security supply chain. So this is very important. For example, like technology, R&D on technology, we would like to have all the policymakers here. We would like to have some incentive for the company that
facilitating, isn't it?
Yeah, facilitating for the R&D or whatever. So hopefully that can be considered. Same also goes to how to solve this labor. Of course, we need to have good technology, IoT or AI, that we are now become the mega trend for everything. So we do hope that those companies that investing in AI or any technology for the sake of production, increased production, we should give some incentive or something to that effect, so that we can, share, or maybe we can have maybe matching grant or whatever that the company, for example, that a company like they are not directly related to food security, but they want to contribute, then we can give them some incentive there, and special fund to be formed so that they can contribute to this fund for food security fund.
Okay, quite a long list of wish list there, but
okay,
I think the rapporteur actually keeping some notes on that. Maybe last from Dr. Pavo, Any comments on the whole things to wrap up?
Okay, thanks. Yeah, I mean, it was fantastic set of presentations today, which all linked very well to the same direction. And I wanted to basically come back to what Madam Deputy General said about the need to change the Malaysia food security policies. And that is one thing, I think, which is really important for us to consider is the need for a paradigm shift in terms of considering the food basket rather than individual value chains when it comes to the shift in the food security policies. And this issue of the paradigm in change of the food basket should be guided by Malaysia dietary guidelines, which were released in 2020. So why I'm saying it? Because I'm saying it because there is a problem. As of 2022, 40% of Malaysia food basket, you know, what consumers spend, their expenditures went to meat, dairy, fruits and vegetables. If you add seafood, it was 65%. Rice was only 4%. If you look at the budget expenditures on agriculture, rice gets almost 50%. So there is something wrong here, and we need to think about how can we also align the public expenditure system with the changing consumer behavior, the changing demographics, and of course urbanization trends. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. I think 40 minutes is not enough. I think what all the three gentlemen here are just giving is a teaser, so they will be around. I'm going to keep you guys on the floor later on, so that the panels can get some other question feedback from the audience. So once again, a round of applause to all three of the gentlemen here for very insightful conversation. Thank you.
And thank you, Professor Dr. Insigne B.T. Hang Tuah Baharudin, especially for that value-added proposition of keeping the panel here past their required hours. So they're going to be here to answer questions from the floor. We're going to have a quick photograph. Can we have everyone back up on stage for a quick photograph to wrap up the session in front of the table right here? Just in front of the table. Thank you, gentlemen. Another round of applause, ladies and gentlemen, for our first panel of the day, Shaping Demand and Supply Towards Improving Food Security. Thank you, gentlemen, for the very insightful conversation encompassing the whole-of-nation approach to food security. And up next, we shall be putting the focus especially on the northern region, which is known as the food bastion of Malaysia, especially when it comes to rice, which is a staple here in Southeast Asia. And this next session will be focusing on the challenges and contributions of IPR-INTAN towards poverty eradication and food security. So before I bring up our next guest, I just want to quickly remind you once again, ladies and gentlemen, about the QR code for not only the Q&As, but also to kindly take our survey, which is available on the portal. Please let us know how we're doing in terms of event preparation and also content creation for the understanding of the various topics on discussion. Thank you for your kind feedback. And we do have, ladies and gentlemen, a final presentation on this topic of food security. So with that, I would like to invite from the Northern Corridor Implementation Authority, NCIA, its Chief Executive, Mr. Muhammad Haris Kadir Sultan, to take the stage.
Thanks, Terence. Thank you very much, Terence. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good morning. It's an interesting topic, especially after the gentleman has already given the teaser. But then it's kind of difficult because they have already covered out everything. And I have 10 minutes, according to the organizer, to have to complete this, and followed by the question and answers. IPR-INTAN. Okay. IPR-INTAN announced by the Prime Minister during the budget speech of 2024 on the 13th of October 2023. Is passed to Kementerian Ekonomi. Kementerian Ekonomi took the lead to ensure that this program is sustained, is well developed, is well concise, and to ensure that everybody, especially the B40 and hardcore poor, get benefit of it. The objective of the IPR-INTAN project is to increase income of the B40 and hardcore poor, to ensure them at least to gain income of 2,000 per month, even before the crops been harvested, which is as though you're going to an office, you're going to any factory, you're working there, and you get 2,000 per month, not without doing anything. Of course, you have to plant, you have to do all those things, but before the harvesting process. And to ensure this, we have to make sure that the anchor company that we choose must be experienced, must be financially stable, and they know their job, and they are market-driven. So these three components are very important. And what we do in NCIA, we tweak a little bit after discussing with Dr. Zunika. We have the SKM3. We give the participants the SKM3 level to ensure that even though they go off this project, they are sustainable by themselves. And last but not least, the main objective is to support the food security agenda. And as what the gentleman, Dato' Adnan, mentioned just now, and Tan Sri also mentioned just now, that the import of our crops is about 75 billion. So that's too huge. So what do we do this? We have to ensure that this program is sustained, well developed, and to ensure, and also to make sure that it is done properly to overcome the importation. And as of now, in NCIA, of course, we have 4 states from Perlis to Perak, the whole Perak. And for now, we have 6 companies, anchor companies, and we have given them the budget and how do we do it. The budget is only for the first cycle. And there are at least 3 of these 6 companies, they have gone to the next cycle. That means they are well-sustained. And in another word, we chose the right anchor companies. And the job opportunities, especially for B40 and the hardcore poor, the targeted job opportunities is about 370, and we have got about 40% of the job being given to the hardcore poor and the B40s for now. And the crops that we choose, this is an interesting thing. Sometimes we choose the crops which are already not in demand. So we have to choose the crops which are highly in demand, and so that the supply and the demand can be in equilibrium. For 2024, for Q4 2024, there will be another 15 companies, another 9 companies will be chosen, anchor companies, which are 2 in Penang, 1 in Kedah, and 6 in Perlis. So this comes up to 620 acres of land. And we maximize the use of land, which are not used currently. We ensure that all these crops are given high priority. And we also ensure that upstream and downstream of these crops are well done. Especially like what Dato' Adnan mentioned just now, the chilies. for one cycle for 4 months, there won't be any chilies. We will try to address that, Dato', with all these companies. Okay. And the next thing that I want to mention here is the contribution of IPR-INTAN is to, as I mentioned just now, at least 2,000 per month of income has been given to all the participants. SKM level 3 certification in farm operation. That means the anchor company also must be SLDN, must obtain their SLDN so that they can contribute the SKM3 certification. And attractive incentives, which is how they do it is, once it's been harvested, the farmers, the participants will get some bonus out of it. That is contracted with the anchor company, with the farmers as well. And as all of us know, agriculture has never been sexy and will not be sexy until and unless IoT is being addressed, introduced. IoT has been introduced, digitalization has been introduced, especially for the youth and youngsters. So for all these IPR-INTAN projects, we will ensure that IoT and digitalization is part of it. And it will be a vital thing for the farmers, especially for the youth, to gain the knowledge on the IoT. And on the other side, for the anchor company, they have to ensure, before they apply for this project, they have to ensure that they have off-take marketing already. That means, for example, from Nestle, Giant, Maidin, and all these things, when they apply, they have to produce the certification and the documentation from the off-take marketers. Development of contract farmers for the next phase. Initially, all these B40 and most of the B40 and hardcore poor, they do not have any knowledge of farming. So once they come in, they are trained, and the next step is for them to be the contract farmers, so that in order for them to gain higher income, better profit, better knowledge. And for the anchor companies also, by doing this, by participating in this program, they can go up to the next level, because they have the production, they have the produce of the farmers, and they will ensure that marketing is all sustained. And on ESG, it is ESG friendly because it is a circular economy. So the waste of the farming will go back as a fertilizer. So that is taken care. And as I mentioned just now, adoption of IoT is a must for all these programs. And with that, I will really appreciate that let's bury the hatchet and fold up our sleeves to ensure that this program is sustained and well-driven. Thank you very much. Terence, question? No question? Okay, thank you, Terence.
Let us check to see if there are any questions. Do we have the Slido screen up? Because you have some time.
Okay. No questions, please. Good, everyone.
No questions. All right, on that note,
there
are no questions. So thank you very much, Mr. Muhammad Haris, for joining us here and presenting. And that session now brings us to our next session, because we have been focusing on food security. It's time to look at the environment which contributes towards food security. So globally as well, this has become quite the issue as the prospect of a Donald Trump presidency approach. He has pulled America out of the Paris Accord before, and that made ripple effect changes to how America approached environmental safety and security, and their move towards sustainability was kind of halted there. He has said drill, baby, drill as part of his campaign pledge. So if he wins, it looks like the United States will be effectively differentiated from the rest of the world when it comes to moving towards sustainability, because they'll be fracking, they'll still be using sources that traditionally have contributed towards global warming, and the rest of the world will be moving towards more sustainable sources. So kemampanan alam sekitar, or environmental sustainability, becomes a key issue, especially for countries like Malaysia. Despite having a very small footprint, we do also feel the brunt of climate change. And I'm sure you can all look back into recent history as we glance upon the scale of floods and the weather turbulence that has occurred throughout the nation from time to time as testament of that. So once again, we've split this session into three. We have a keynote, and then we'll have a panel followed by another keynote to wrap things up just before lunch. Now, in the event that any of you joining us here today have yet to register, please kindly do so. There's a double registration required. If you've already registered yesterday, please kindly once again approach the counter and make your registration noted for attendance for day 2. On that note, it's time to move into our very first keynote, and we're ready to introduce the Pro-Chancellor of the Heriot-Watt University, Malaysia, and Professor and Executive Director of Sunway Centre for Planetary Health, presenting on the triple planetary crisis, climate change, biodiversity loss, and pollution. Yang berbahagia, Tan Sri Jamila Mahmud.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. Among the distinguished guests, I just caught a glimpse of my teacher in this room. So, Prof. Sharifah Hapsa, I saw you. Right. Thank you very much for this opportunity to share with you what I call, can I have the first slide? I think, good. Oops. What's going on? Right. Planetary health, the triple planetary crisis, and the impact to economy. Now, this is a lecture I normally would do in about an hour and a half, and I'm going to try and squeeze it to 20 minutes. There's a lot of data, so if you'd like to follow up after, we'll be very happy to engage. But let's start. Development, gross domestic product. The race for countries to be developed has accelerated over the many, many years that we've seen our nations flourish. And as a result, what we see is populations increase, the GDP rise, foreign direct investments is how we measure our success. Urbanization, 70% of our populations will be in urban settings by 2050. That means we need more food, and the very interesting discussions this morning, we will need to have more water, we will need to have more paper and more energy. But all this has also reflection on Earth systems, and Earth systems includes the production of carbon dioxide, methane, other emissions, our ozone layer, our surface temperatures, which are rising, and as it is now, we're seeing 60% loss of land due to agriculture. We are also seeing more than 25% increase in CO2 production, and of course, heat production as well. So everything has come at a cost. And that cost is at the expense of the planet. It is estimated that unchecked climate change will have at least 250,000 deaths per year. It will have a real water stress by 2050. 40% of the world's population could be under severe water stress, either droughts or too much water, sea levels rising. Maldives, you better go now. It won't exist by 2100. Biodiversity loss threatens humanity, and a lot of this is actually for agriculture, large-scale agriculture, particularly animal agriculture. And as a result of planting more, using more fertilizers, soil degradation happens, leading to a loss of about 1 to 2 million hectares of agricultural land per year. The impact on health is profound. And as a health professional, let me focus on this today. We see rising temperatures, we see more extreme weather, even in Malaysia, we're experiencing it. We see increasing CO2 levels, that's not the worst, methane, nitrous oxide are other harmful gases, but also rising sea levels. The amount of disease that causes is really very wide-ranging, from respiratory diseases as a result of pollution. We also see infectious diseases. We've just come out, we've not really fully come out of COVID, it's still lingering, and that is as a result of planetary degradation. Heat-related illnesses, you would have heard that in Mecca this year, thousands of people died as a result of the heat waves. And of course, you know, there are other diseases like malnutrition because the quality of food is low. As socioeconomic disparity happens, people will choose to use high-calorie foods rather than nutritious food, and stunting and other problems will also develop. And new diseases are emerging, but also old diseases are coming back. Even in Malaysia, tuberculosis is on the rise. And dengue, malaria, is already emerging in the United States of America. But one thing we rarely talk about is migration. It is estimated that more than 1 billion people will be on the move by 2050 because their conditions in the countries they come from will no longer be, good for them to live. The World Economic Forum every year produces what is called a Global Risk Report, and in 2024, in January this year, this was the report that came out. In the immediate 2 years, the main things that people are worried about is really about misinformation, disinformation. And if you look at all the green areas, these are climate, environmental related. In the next 10 years, you will see that dominating the landscape. So those are where the risks will come from, and they will have terrible consequences. But that's not all. It's not as straightforward as that. What is happening now, and I'm not having a lot of fun with these slides, is that we are now in an age where we are facing what is called an uncertainty complex. Nothing is linear anymore. It's not just the environmental things that are happening. We have everyday uncertainties in life, but 3 emerging uncertainties are actually colliding with each other, causing a perfect storm. One of it, of course, is the dangerous planetary change of the Anthropocene. This is what I'm talking about today. The Anthropocene is us humans causing damage to the planet and causing the consequences of that damage. Secondly is the pursuit of sweeping transformations. We see this all around the world, Ukraine, Gaza, Sudan, everywhere that you see massive societal transformations. And finally, the rise in polarization, not just at global level, it's also regional, it's national, it's local, and it's at community level as well around the world. So we are grappling with all these challenges amidst the risks that are already emerging. So today, for the triple planetary crisis, often defined as 3 major crises: climate change, biodiversity loss, and pollution. And traditionally, they've always used air pollution, but I think that's not enough. We are also facing a very severe problem of water and plastic pollution. And you may have been reading in the news lately that Malaysians are probably the highest consumption of microplastics. I always joke that when I die, you can probably make a credit card out of me. But it's quite serious because it's already in placental tissue, it's in milk, breast milk, it's in baby's feces, and it is, gentlemen, in testicular tissue as well. So before we go any further, this is essential. If there's any one thing you learned today, it's planetary boundaries. And I cannot do justice to this topic, but this wonderful Netflix documentary can. It only is an hour, please watch it. But essentially, if we are going to be in a safe space for humanity, How do we measure that safe space? As scientists, we need to know what are the indicators, and there are 9 boundaries that can be measured, and these are called the planetary boundaries. They were described in 2009 by Johan Rockström and his team at Stockholm Resilience Center. When he described it, only 3 boundaries were crossed. As of late last year, 6 have been crossed, and I can show you later in Malaysia, 7 have been crossed. All these have consequences. Global temperatures rising, warmer oceans, shrinkage of ice sheets, loss of wildlife and wildlife population. We're losing like 150 species of insects a day. Cutting down rainforests due to land conversion and so forth. So you'll see that all these, including the microplastics, have now emerged as very important measurements of the state of our planet. If you're in the green zone, you're safe. If you're not safe. Planetary health emerged because doctors and scientists said it's not good enough to talk about health from a public health and human health perspective. If humans and human civilization is going to be safe, then the planet has to be healthy. And it's so closely interlinked. It is an interdisciplinary, multi-systems approach, which means it's inherently political, social, environmental, and also health-related. And for the health sector, it's very easy to imagine that health is the domain of the health ministry, but 80% of the determinants of health are outside the health sector. So until you get your environmental, social, economic, political, all that right, you will never have a healthy nation. You will not be working for health, you'll be working towards curing illness. And that is not cost-effective. So, this is from the Oliver Wyman report this year in January, and it shows the costs of climate change. And you will see here that the costs are rising, but not only that, you will see in very large number of that cost will come from flooding. And this is relevant to Malaysia. You and I know we have a lot of flash floods, urban flooding, which is actually very, very costly. Heat waves are causing more problems, but look at the amount of deaths and global economic losses of about 12.5 trillion. And that, as I've shown here, is really mainly heat waves and floods. Floods will cause a lot of deaths as well. In Malaysia, we are developing a national planetary health action plan led by MOSTI and Academy of Science under the National Science Council. And what we found, this is data from until 2019, and this is just from disasters till 2019. The costs are quite phenomenal. And until and unless we have a clear plan on how to actually reduce these costs and mitigate and also adapt, we will be in real trouble. Let's look at global data. When we look at global data, when we talk about premature deaths, these are the estimated or the potential loss of life before the age of 70. And the environmental related welfare costs is only talking about mortality, not even talking about illness. We're just talking about deaths. So it's very much higher if you build in the cost of illness. And what it shows really is on the rise globally. It's about 2% per annum. The cumulative global welfare costs from 2005 to 2019 was about 358 trillion US dollars. In Malaysia, we estimate that over the past 15 years, the global welfare cost has risen by 161%. And this is growing even faster at the global rate of about 6% per annum. And the cumulative global welfare costs from 2005 to 2022 is close to 1 trillion. Let's look at what is causing these premature deaths. You will see that the last top three risks are all environmental related. You will see that it is occupational particulate matter, gases and fumes, lead, of course this is related also to diesel, ambient particulate matter. We have very poor air quality in Malaysia. The only time we had good air quality was during the lockdown. And in 2019, the welfare costs of environmental-related premature deaths amounted to 74.9 billion. Now think about, in comparison to the petroleum subsidy that is given, 50 to 60 billion. You have the subsidy, but you're actually spending it on health. So, we've got to think of a new way of addressing these issues. And this is about 5% of Malaysia's GDP. And you'll see that top 3 risks contributed about 80% of the welfare costs. I mentioned about the triple planetary crisis. How do we then put it into measurements? So we created something called the Malaysia's Biophysical Index. It's not we. I'm talking about the planetary health community. And this is research from Andrew Fanning and company from Leeds University. But what we see, you see three colored lines. The yellow line is business as usual, the green line is best case scenario, and red line is worst case scenario. And I will tell you now that these are all underestimates. So if you look at the business as usual, in all scenarios, you will see a rise in CO2, even in the best case scenario. And we will see that, unless and until we do something very drastic, all those parameters that are measuring the triple planetary crisis, our planetary boundaries, will still be violated and will still get worse and worse. Now, how does this translate to different scenarios? If we look at the best case scenario, you look at 2015, if we take 1 as neutral, which means we haven't crossed the boundary, so anything above 1 is bad, right? So if you look at 2020 case scenario, these are all data from Andrew Fanning's research, and if you forecast it to 2030, in the best case scenario, we might be 2.50, which means 2.5 times above what is safe. If you look at the worst case scenario, we will be 5.79 times above what is safe. So this is not looking good. Now let's look at the environmental welfare costs. I mentioned earlier about the premature deaths before age 70. And again, looking at best case scenario, worst case scenario, and business as usual, take a look at it and you will see that by 2030, if we are still doing business as usual, then what will happen is that we will be losing about 7% of our GDP to these environmental-related causes, health-related. And this is only mortality, just to remind you, it's not even morbidity. And in the worst-case scenario, the numbers obviously are higher. In terms of the biophysical index, again, by doing some modeling, if we look at what is a pragmatic scenario, which means very optimistic, right? Not probably unachievable. It will take us a long time. If we do achieve the number 1, that means we're not crossing the planetary boundaries by 2050, then you will see these indices differentiate. But how does that then translate into costs? So I'm going to introduce the return of values concept. This has already been described in the STIE framework that I think the Economic Ministry is very familiar with. But it's a different way of looking at value, not just return of investment. It's really important that we start looking at return of values because of all these challenges that we're facing that I've described. And to do that, you need to do an ecosystem analysis. The 8 I's, basically the infrastructure, incentives, and so forth, the 8I and 8R framework. So how do we now, in anything that we do, examine the 8 I's and 8 R's in our business, in our economy, in our policies, and so forth? And what we propose that you need to have an 8I, 8R nature-centric framework, because this is the only way for us to get out of the mess that we're in and try to move as close as possible to our limits of the planetary boundaries so that the cost to life and to health is going to be lower. And this is how we're looking at it from a planetary health perspective. if we integrate it, then what we'll find is that we have the ecosystem enablers. Then you need to have dynamic capabilities. For those ecosystem enablers to happen, everything needs to shift. Education, business, the way we are innovating, the way we are looking at our economies and so forth. And therefore you have the absorptive capacity, the knowledge and that you gain. How do you then adapt that and how then do you innovate? And we want to find that zone of ecosystem balance, that ikagai moment, where everything is in place. You have environmental protection, social protection, economic protection, but also a political stability at the same time. And that will translate into your return of values. This requires a shift in mindset. And I think it's really, really important that we think about this. And if we do not reboot our economic ecosystems, nature will boot us out of the natural ecosystem. So those nature-centric enablers, which I mentioned, requires us to rethink all the R's, right? All the I's, the internationalization, interactions with each other, our infrastructure, and so forth. So let me come to the return of value analysis then, that we mentioned. Again, on the left is a pragmatic scenario, again optimistic, that we reach that planetary boundary of 1 by 2050. You will see that in this instance, if you do business as usual in an economy that is projected to be 4 trillion ringgit in 2040, the cost is about 467 billion, which is about 11.8%. And that's a business as usual. But if you do it well and you come down a bit more pragmatic, you can save 6.8%, reduce that. So that return of value area means if you had invested in new ways of doing things in the years before 2050, that would have been more efficient. And similarly, in the best case scenario, and you look at it by 2040, the figure is even higher. So what I'm trying to say here is that there are ways that we can address how we can actually create less impact to human health and human well-being, less impact on economy by doing things differently. One way is looking at a donut model economics model, which is a regenerative economics model. You will see here the outer ring is really the planetary boundaries, the ecological ceiling. The inner ring, the social foundations, is the sustainable development goals. What you want to do is make sure people are in the light green zone. They don't fall into the hole of the donut, which means their social needs are met and economic needs are met, but they also don't go across the ring of the donut, which means the planet is protected. So this is how Malaysia stands in comparison with other countries. We are really not doing very well. I do not like it when we are similar to the USA in bad things. So, we are really polluting. We have a lot of issues. I mentioned earlier, 6 planetary boundaries are crossed, but in Malaysia, 7. We are bringing it to Malaysia. We have brought it to Malaysia. We brought it to Ipoh. We work with Kate Rayworth, the author of Donut Economics, with the Ipoh State Council and Ipoh City Council and the State Council as well. And it's shifting the narrative from a mining-heavy city to a regenerative society using this economic model. And what PERA has also done is use that economic model to monitor how its development is going. And I'm very proud to share that just last week, it has been awarded the highest award by UN Habitat, the Scroll of Honor for the Ipoh Donut model that is embracing. So really, kudos to PERA and the Ipoh City Council. Our role is really a knowledge partner, accompanying them and getting them motivated. I come from the Planetary Health Center. This year, we organized for the first time in Asia, a planetary health summit But it wasn't just a summit to talk, it was a summit to produce a global roadmap. And the roadmap has an action points, an action plan, and these are the 6 areas of the action plan, and I'd be very happy to share with you later. But basically, we need a revolution in so many ways. We need to know how to measure, we need how to educate, we need how do we communicate this to everyone. We need to make sure we bring the businesses in. We need to make sure governance is strong, and how do you build that holistic governance and mainstream this. I come from Sunway University. I'm very proud to say that planetary health is a mandatory course for all our undergraduates. They cannot graduate without passing it. And we will be launching our medical curriculum this year, which will be very planetary health focused, the first in the world. This is I can give you the QR codes to the reports. I'm going to just tease the people in this room with this, because I think it's very important for us to not be enchanted by shiny new things that cost a lot of money. We have to re-examine the roots of our problems. And I think that, this is based on some research done. I think we've got to be very careful where we put our money in our investments. The great thing in the world is not so much where we stand as in what direction we are moving. I'm privileged to be talking to all of you today because you will be determining the direction of travel for our RMK 13. I want to share a profound quote I found from the late Royal Professor Uncle Aziz. And he said, "If a doctor makes a mistake, a patient may die. If an engineer makes a mistake, a bridge may collapse. But if policymakers make a mistake, a nation will suffer." Ladies and gentlemen, hari ini hari Jumaat. We are in the place where Tabung Haji gathers their pilgrims. I'm 65 years old this year. I will not live to see the Blade Runner situation our planet may face. But I'm a realistic optimist. I really believe that if we work together and we try to reimagine new ways of development, we can make the future better for future generations to come. I say this because we all have a duty. Every one of us, irrespective of our faith, have a duty. We will all meet our Creator, and we will have to answer, how did we live our lives? How did we consume? How did we travel? How do we make the choices that we made in our lives? Why is it that we keep buying things from Shopee wrapped in 6 layers of plastic? Why do we have plastic water containers used singly and thrown away? We need to be ready to answer our Creator. And I think all of us here have a responsibility to help our nation not face the terrible consequences that I've shared with you. Thank you very much, and all the best for RMK 13.
Thank you, Yang Berbahagia Tan Sri, for a very profound sharing. I hope that all of you have taken something away from that as we get ready for the next session, which is a panel discussion on Net Zero 2050, Decarbonizing for a Greener Future. And I do believe that earlier keynote highlighted the necessity for decarbonizing. However, each nation will have its own model, will have its own restrictions and challenges. How do we actually achieve 2050's target? Before we get into that, I understand that some of our delegates today have not yet registered for day 2. So take a moment at your convenience to kindly do so outside. Please register your attendance for day 2. The counters are waiting to receive you just outside at your convenience. Thank you. So I'll get right into introducing our moderator, who will then introduce her panel. Please welcome Yang Berbahagia Datin Sunita Rajakumar, Climate Governance Malaysia.
Thank you so much for having me here. This is such a great occasion, and I'm really gratified to see such a huge turnout. Well done, Kementerian Ekonomi, for organizing this. So, so of course we have a great lineup. We've got Dr. Ching, KSU at NENRES, Ms. Charlotte Wolfby, CSO at Petronas, Mani, who's from the World Bank, So we really have a lot of content, really rich content coming up. We're going to start off by inviting each of them to just share their initial thoughts about the topic for today. Net Zero 2050, Decarbonizing for a Greener Future. So if I can invite Dr. Ching to just share your initial thoughts, please. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Datin Sri. I think first of all, I would like to thank KE for inviting Ministry to share some of our key policy directions with regard to the climate change, right? And perhaps I would like to start with taking you back a key decision made in June this year. In the Climate Change Council meeting chaired by PM, one key decision was agreed in that meeting that we will achieve net zero GHG emission by 2050. Firm 2050, right? Under the previous administrations, the target was as early as 2050, right? And that has been our goalpost going towards how we going about to green the economy. And in that meeting also, one of the other mechanism that has been agreed is for government to establish the National Decarbonization Committee, headed by Andreas, its minister. And this committee is just to monitor the net zero ambition that we have set by 2050. I think it's good for us to take a few moments to reflect where we were now, right? Under the Binary Update Report 4 that we have submitted to UNFCCC, if I could quote here some statistics, the energy sector accounts for roughly 80% of the total emissions. Energy sector that come from the power sector, transport, and oil and gas production, 80%. If we could do something to reduce this sector emission, then we are almost halfway there already. From the process and product use, or IPPU, so represent almost 33%. And waste sector about 28%. If you look in the water sector, the bill that they pay to TNB represent close to 40%. 40%. And yet, the rate that you pay, you and I pay, not even covering the OPEC for some operators. And if you look at the carbon sinks, but I think thanks to the 54% forest cover that we have, and 100 million tree planting initiative, that's play an important role in carbon sinks. The forest sinks about 215 million tons CO2 equivalent. 215 million tons CO2 equivalent, right? And making our net GHG emission to be around 116 million tons CO2 equivalent. This is 2019 figure. In short, we are net positive at the moment. And the BR4 will be revised in February 2025. Then we will have a new figure whether we are nearing the net zero or not. Let me just go a bit more on how we could go and achieve the net zero its ambitions. We are looking into promoting a carbon pricing instrument. And my colleague from MOF might not agree with me, even though they have commissioned is a study by World Bank, PMI, to look into when would be the best time that we should introduce, for example, is a carbon tax. Not on all industry yet, I would say. Perhaps we should focus on hard to abate industry, steel industry, cement industry. On the other hand, we should look also giving some incentive to the well-performed industry. They already so implements some form of Green's initiative on that. And we would expect perhaps to give some clarity to the sector. I'm not sure whether it's too early for MWF to think of giving some indication in the next budget that carbon tax will be introduced in the near future. And we have engaged a consultant to look into a more broader carbon credits mechanism. And from what we gathered, that the right time for us to introduce carbon tax would be year 2028. Some indication to MWF on that. Achieving net zero will have to be based on 7 key objectives. This was based on the anti-lead study. Number 1, we have to reduce GHG reduction in emission. 2, we have to promote economic development. 3rd, job creation for the people. Less energy import by leveraging more on RE. And lastly, this is something quite negative, high cost for energy and materials. Let's say if you want to meet net zero by 2050, the RE mix has to go up to 80%. Under the current NETR, it was stated 75%. That would mean we have to retire our coal-fired plants much earlier than target. Then again, questions come to our mind. Are we willing to pay more for our energy costs by going more for the RE? Then we have to balance between economic costs, social costs, and also, to some extent, political costs. Let me just go to the a bit on the NDC. Nationally determined contribution. This was also discussed in the climate change meeting in June. 2021, we have pledged to IPCC that we will reduce economy-wide carbon intensity by 45% in 2030 compared to 2005 level. That was in the NDC 2021. And NDC is again due for revision in February 2025. Now the question to us is that whether we want to maintain 45% target, whether the target will be depending on conditional the requirement, or we can do without any assistance from the third party. That's a question that Ministry will encourage all of you to give us the feedbacks, whether we should maintain 45% or we should go higher than 45%. And that process will be submitted to UNFCCC in February 2025. That's the NDC 3.0. The last point that I want to make is that under the Malaysian Forest Fund, or under the Ministry, we have introduced 2